Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're going to tackle a chess puzzle. And this one's a thinker.
Oh, yeah.
It is. So picture this. White's got their knight on g5, bishop on d4, pawns on f4, d3, a2, b2, another knight hanging out on e2, pawn on h2, the king's kicking back on a1, and the rooks are standing guard on c1 and f1.
All right, I'm following. Sounds like a pretty standard setup so far. What's black got?
Black's looking kind of like a mirror image. King on d8, rook on g8, bishop on b7, pawns on h7, a6, f5, and b4. Another rook on c6, bishop on d6, a knight on c5, and a final pawn on e6.
All right, pieces are set. What's the puzzle here? What are we trying to figure out?
Right, so the question is, how does white make the best move from here?
Well, let's see. Both sides are pretty evenly matched. Pieces are looking pretty balanced. Lots of possibilities.
Yeah, lots of potential moves, that's for sure. But remember, in chess, it's all about strategy, right? It's about thinking a few steps ahead, anticipating your opponent's moves, controlling key areas of the board.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the first things I always look at is the center of the board. Who's controlling that space? That can give you a big advantage.
Right, the center. Classic chess strategy.
Right.
And looking at this board, it's pretty crowded in the middle.
It is, yeah. But I think white has a slight edge here. See that black bishop on d6?
Yeah, what about it? It seems pretty well positioned.
It is, but it's also kind of vulnerable. What if white could force a trade there, open up that c file for their rook? That could really swing things in their favor.
Interesting. So you're thinking about long-term positioning, not just an immediate attack.
Exactly. Get that rook on c5, and it's got a clear shot down the board. A lot of pressure on black's pieces.
Okay, so how do we make that happen? What's the move?
Well, there's one move that really jumps out at me. White should move their bishop from d4 to c5.
Bishop d4 to c5. Okay, I see why that's interesting. It forces black's hand, doesn't it?
It does. Black pretty much has to take that bishop with their own bishop on d6. They don't really have another good option.
So then what? What does white do next?
Now is the time for that rook to swoop in. White moves their rook from c1 to c5.
Taking the spot where the black bishop was. Slick.
And again, black's kind of stuck. They got to counter with their rook on c6. Otherwise, white's rook is going to start causing all sorts of problems.
Okay, so now we've got a rook standoff on c5. What happens next?
This is where white can really start putting the pressure on. Move their knight from g5 to e6.
Ah, I see. That knight is now threatening black's king, isn't it?
You got it. Black's king is forced to move to e7 to get out of check. And that opens up one final decisive move for white.
I'm on the edge of my seat here. What's the final blow?
White takes that rook on c5 with their knight from e6.
So the answer is white. Bishop d4 to c5, black. Bishop d6 to c5, white. Rook c1 to c5, black. Rook c6 to c5, white. Knight g5 to e6, black. King d8 to e7, white. Knight e6 to c5.
Bingo. That's the sequence.
And just to be clear, this isn't a checkmate.
Right.
But it's still a huge win for white.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, white is in a commanding position now. They control that open c file. Their rook is a serious threat on black's back rank. Black's going to have a tough time recovering from this.
A real turning point in the game.
Exactly. And that's what makes chess so fascinating, isn't it? Sometimes it's not about the flashy checkmate, but about these subtle positional advantages that can slowly but surely turn the tide of the game.
Thanks for breaking that down. That was great.
Anytime.
Thank you for listening.